back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. Thank you for joining me. I am so glad you're here. Today I have a very special guest. She is a mom of 5 boys and a girl. She's very busy, as you can tell, but there are lots of other things about her too. She is a teacher. She has been a teacher for 6 years. She has taught my son rhetoric and is currently teaching him American literature. He was 9th grade, now he's 10th, so she has a lot of patience. She is fluent in Italian. She has lived in Italy for close to a year. Was it close to a year? And she loves to grow flowers. There are so many things that she's going to share with us today, and I'm so excited she's here. Welcome, Mackenzie.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Beth.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here. Okay, so you obviously are serving a crowd every night with 5 boys and a girl, most of them in their teens. I forgot to ask, what are their age range? What is their age range?
My daughter is 18, and then the boys range from 17 down to 9.
Okay.
And they all eat like grown men.
Yes.
Except for my daughter.
All those boys probably eat more than you do.
Oh, yes.
You are feeding adults. I know because I have 4 boys and 1 girl. And when they were all teenagers together, it was feeding a crowd. My husband had a coworker, and when they would just talk about normal dinners, and my husband would be just kind of describing our normal night, he was like, y'all cook like I do for company. Speaking of company, so we know you feed a crowd just every night, but you invite families in, you host parties, things like that. What is a specific menu that you think of when you are feeding a crowd?
So one of my favorites is actually doing ramen. And the reason I really enjoy doing this one is it's very customizable. So if you have people coming over with a lot of allergies or food intolerances, or you have people who you don't really know if they're going to be picky or not picky, but you want everyone to really enjoy the meal, it's super flexible. So the way I like to do it is I make 2 different broths, one that has peanut and coconut milk. It's my personal favorite ramen broth, but it obviously has peanuts in it. So then I make another one that doesn't have allergens, and it's a pretty simple broth. It's chicken based, but you could do it with vegetable base. You could even make it vegetarian if you needed to. And then what I really like it is when I have a big crowd over, I like food that is sort of activity based in a way.
Oh, that's fun.
And that's sort of DIY. I find that guests really enjoy that. They get into it, and frequently they'll go back for seconds because it's kind of exciting to see what other combinations you can do. And when I see guests going back for seconds, it warms my heart.
It does warm your heart. Yes. And it tells you they really do like your food.
Yes. And I also like this meal because it's pretty budget friendly. A lot of the toppings are going to be vegetables. So you really can do whatever you want, but I'll do things like cucumbers or carrots and mushrooms, lots of different vegetables. It's really beautiful when you have them all out in different size bowls. You can kind of pick pretty bowls to put them in. And then for the protein, I love it also because you can do really anything you want. So for example, the last time I did this with a big crowd, I had made a pork shoulder a week before. We'd had leftovers because we'd done 2. I froze half of it. And then the night we did ramen, I thawed it out. My husband had smoked it, so it was just delicious. We thawed it out, and it went great in the ramen. But the time before that, we had done like a teriyaki chicken. So you really can kind of just do if you have meat left over in the freezer, or if you find something on sale, and it can keep it super affordable, even if it's a lot of people.
So is ramen build your own bowl? Like
basically.
Where you have your noodles and sauce, but then you're putting all the different ingredients in bowls where you just kind of build your own bowl.
That's how I like to do it. So when I do it with the family, I usually pre-do all, like just my family. I'll pre-plate the bowls, and we'll do the boiled egg and the toppings and all that kind of stuff. But if we do a big crowd, I just put everything in separate bowls, and then everyone just kind of DIYs their own dish.
That sounds so fun. So delicious. Do you have any particular time savers or shortcuts you use when you make this if you're in a hurry?
So I think having the meat pre-prepped is a big one. And if you're the kind of person who likes to do stuff ahead, if you know you're going to be making it just a time earlier in the month when you do meat, just double the portion and freeze part of it. That the last time I made it that really, really helped. Because when you don't think about the protein, that's usually a bulk of your work. The other thing that helped me for this meal is if you don't have a mandolin slicer, you just have to have one for a meal like this. And you can do the veggies really fast.
If this is not her kitchen item, her favorite kitchen item at the end, mandolin slicer, we're adding that.
Yes, really. I mean, if you're going to do big crowds, you just have to have one because it makes it go so much faster.
Do you have a favorite, just as a caveat? Do you have a favorite brand or style, or are they all basically the same?
My favorite is whatever one I got at the thrift store.
Okay.
So.
Hey, that's a great place to look for things.
It is.
Do you like Goodwill or Hope Center, or what kind of thrift store do you shop at?
I actually have 2 mandolin slicers right now. Both of them I found basically brand new at Goodwill. I think it's one of those kitchen tools. Unless you used it a lot, you might buy one and then it just sits in the drawer. So I found that that's a great place to get them.
I'm going to have to go look at Goodwill because I do not own a mandolin, but I have toyed with the idea of buying one. So
do it, Bess.
Goodwill, here I come.
Yes.
Okay, back to what you were talking about. So mandolin is necessary.
I want it's not. You can do ramen without it, but if you're doing a lot, it saves so much time. So you mandolin slice up tons of cucumbers and peppers and whatever other veggies that you want to put in it, and really the sky's the limit. And then I'll bag them separately in Ziplocs, throw them in the fridge, and then if you don't have a lot of time, you're good to go.
You just open the bag and dump in the bowl.
Yep. And if you want to do the broths ahead of time too, they save really well. You could even do them and freeze them. I mean, it's really a very do-ahead meal.
Wow, that does sound really good. So, quick on the mandolin. I have heard people say that they're scared of mandolins, but don't they have a guard or something that would protect your fingers if you're going fast? Don't they have something where you're not going to cut your fingers by going fast with cutting vegetables?
They usually come with a little tool that you can stick the vegetable to. Kind of has prongs, and you stick the vegetable onto it, and then it protects your hands. To be honest, I always lose that tool almost immediately. And I have a lot of stitches,
careful.
and so do my boys. Oh. No, we're not from the mandolin. My stitches are not from the mandolin, but I just think that for me personally, I just pay a lot of attention when I just try not
You're
to.
You're just careful and not going
Yeah.
super fast, and you don't go down to the very, very edge of your vegetable.
Exactly. Or if you do, you slow way down when you're doing that
Right.
part.
And the people that are saying, I'm scared of mandolins, you can get that. You can't, especially new ones, they're going to come with that part that protects your fingers. So I feel like they're a safe tool if you just know how to use it.
Well, and if you were really nervous about it or you wanted a child to do it, you can also get those special knife gloves that you can wear and they're made out of like a woven metal. And that would also add that extra layer of protection.
That's a great idea.
If it makes you nervous.
So do you serve anything with this menu, or is it a one dish meal? Because you have so many choices for your bowl.
I generally don't serve anything else with it. The noodles obviously are separate. So one of my dear friends is celiac, so it's a great meal for her too, because she can still have a wonderful dinner. But the noodles are there for the filler, because when you have a lot of boys, you need filler.
Yes.
So, and then of course the protein separately. So normally when I serve it, it's just kind of all together.
I like that. Just one bowl and you're done.
Exactly.
Okay, what is your best tip when it comes to finding cooking inspiration?
So I feel like there's 2 camps of people. There's the people who like to plan ahead really well, and then people who like more last minute stuff. I really enjoy cooking, and for me, it's kind of a way to relax after the day of work. And so I usually decide what I'm going to make in the afternoon before I go home. So I stop by the grocery store on the way home.
Every day?
Almost every day.
Really?
Yes. I know that's not for everyone.
I loved it that much. I love cooking, but I don't know. That makes me happy to picture you just kind of enjoying walking through the grocery store and loving picking up some ingredients. And
I think it goes back to when we lived overseas, it was very early in our marriage. And so I was still kind of learning cooking, and our fridge was about, I don't know, 3 feet tall, and that was the fridge. So we really had to go to the grocery store every day for things that were refrigerated. And unfortunately, it built kind of a bad habit that I haven't been able to break.
You were shopping at open air markets. Did you have that in Italy?
No, but it's so the town we lived in was actually kind of chilly. So I'm sure there were open air markets, but it wasn't chilly all year, but it was a similar climate to here, maybe a little bit warmer. So, but we did have, the little tiny butcher we called them the meat family. It was a little family run butcher shop.
I feel like I would go shopping every day.
And it's right by your house, so you don't.
Yes,
exactly.
If there's a bread shop and a butcher,
and there was a bakery,
and
then there was La Casa di Fiori di Luca.
What
That's where I bought my flowers. Oh. It was a little flower shop with a guy named Luca who ran it. So
sounds amazing. And what do they in Italy? What do they call dessert? I think pastry shops. So maybe that's more French. What is in Italy?
Dolci. Would be sweets, really.
Okay. And they have a lot of espressos and coffees and things there. Do they have that kind of shop as well, or is that combined with the sweet shops?
No, so they don't really have, I mean, they do have a pastry shop. Pasticceria would be another, like a pastry shop. The big one we loved was the gelateria, which is the ice cream shop, because Italian ice cream is out of this world.
Amazing.
But
Can you tell she's fluent Italian? I love that. I can tell, I don't know Italian, but when she pronounces Italian words, I can tell you they are spot on. I can tell you they are 100.
I can also say pizza.
I can say
know,
pizza.
so impressive, right?
I know an Italian word. Is that really an Italian word?
It is.
I mean, it is. I mean, you never know because some things are Americanized, but
And pizza is real.
Pizza.
But you actually say pizza because there's two Z's and you pronounce both. Yeah, pizza.
Interesting. Makes me want to go live in Italy for a bit. Okay, so what were we even talking about? Now I'm dreaming of Italy.
Good question. Sweets, desserts.
We were talking about one dish meals. Do you have
yes.
a favorite dessert? Speaking of dessert, do you have a favorite dessert you serve with this? I mean, of course, on a weeknight, you may not think, oh, I have to have a dessert. But if you have company over, do you have something in particular?
Oh, dessert. I don't have a specific dessert that I would serve with this. The last time I served it, I made whoopie pies, which are obviously not related to ramen or Italian or anything.
Maybe some tiramisu.
Yeah.
That's Italian, right?
Yes, tiramisu is Italian. It means like pick me up because there's coffee and espresso in it.
Yes,
exactly.
I had a friend who, he's been on this podcast before. He's my daughter-in-law's dad. I went to visit this past summer, and he made the best. How do you say it? Tiramisu that I've ever had. I told him you could sell this in a restaurant. He made it for my birthday.
Oh,
he likes to cook and just kind of experiments with things. He makes the best pulled pork ever. There is an episode out that has his pulled pork, but he does other things too. And he made one, and that espresso. So I ate it. He brought it over before we all went to church on Sunday and had it for breakfast. And then I realized there was a whole pan and he left it there. And so I somehow had to have it for breakfast for the next 3 or 4 days. It was hard, but I sacrificed. I made it through. I finished the pan. Okay, I do know what we were talking about. We were talking about shopping tips. So you love to go to the grocery store, look around. You've kind of thought through what you want to cook that night.
So either I decide before I leave school what my menu idea is. Maybe I know I have something in the freezer, some meat in the freezer, or I have some ingredient that I want to use up, and so I'll find something that goes with that. Or often I will go to the store, and my money-saving shopping tip for especially feeding large crowds is I frequently just look for the protein that's on sale. The protein is almost always the most expensive part of the meal, obviously. So if I find a meat, that maybe it's like at the end of its shelf life, they'll mark it way down.
Yes.
I kind of like the challenge of, okay, here's a meat that's on sale. It's a great deal. And now I can find a good recipe that goes with it. And I find that it pushes me to experiment a little bit more than if I just went to the store always with a plan in mind. So that's me. I really enjoy. Recently we did braised beef shanks because I was at the store and they were on sale. And I was like, I've never cooked with beef shanks before. And it was super fun. We got to experiment with a new recipe, ossobuco, actually. It's an Italian recipe that I've never made before. So
do you go home and type in that ingredient and try to find a recipe that goes with that? Or do you have cookbooks that you look at? Like say you buy these beef shanks, how do you then know what to do with them?
So for something like that, if I'm at the store and I see something that is either on a good sale or that it just looks really interesting, I just pull out my phone right in the store and type it in. And usually you see there's a recipe that's familiar enough in terms of the type of cooking that I know that I probably have the ingredients that go with it. Or I might find a specific recipe at the store. So a lot of it will just depend. For the ossobuco, it's the type of cooking I do a lot. So I already have most of the ingredients at home. So I didn't have to buy a lot for that particular recipe. But I often frequently too just choose the recipe before I even go to the store. And then if I see something else, I might change my mind at the moment. But it's usually I'm kind of beelining it to what I want to get.
Yes.
So
how fun. I need to branch out and just make myself go to the store and look. and just be brave. Pick something up without a plan and then create a plan. I love that. That would expand
that makes
who
the
you are
kitchen
as a
exciting.
Cook. Yes. Do you have any particular people that you like to look at their recipes on Instagram or another place, or not really? Do you just
So
all over?
there's one chef, and I'm not positive right now if this is her Instagram handle, but I think it might be called Anna's Table. I can double check for you. And her website's called Serving Dumplings. And I find her recipes are accessible. Like, they're not going to use super strange or expensive ingredients for the most part. And I've been really pleased with the ones that I've tried. For example, there's a soup recipe that I tried last spring that's become a family favorite. That's kind of a sort of a sausage bean recipe, but it's a tomato base instead of a white base that a lot of them are. It's delicious, and it's a company worthy soup. Not all soups are, but this one's been a big hit every time I've served it. So I recommend her.
I will look that up.
And then I really like Half Baked Harvest. It's another kind of tried and true Instagram one. Her recipes are frequently kind of expensive if you have to go out and buy all the ingredients. Not all of them, but often if I pick one and I'm looking at the ingredients, they're a little bit more on the pricey side.
All of that in your pantry.
And then I also like Smitten Kitchen a lot for her Instagram recipes. So those are kind of my three top, I think, for tried and true ones that you know if you make the recipe, it will actually turn out, because I'm sure you know not all of them are that way.
Right. Definitely not. Smitten Kitchen is I was intrigued by her because she cooks out of a tiny kitchen in New York.
Yes.
It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
But she also is one that you can, I just feel like she tests and creates and changes. She does get inspiration from a lot of sources. But she makes them her own, and sometimes she'll talk about how she was inspired by so-and-so's cookbook or something like that. But she does I've tried a lot of her things and have been pleased.
Yes.
What about a cleaning tip? So having 6 kids, 5 boys, I bet your house is pristine.
Oh, always.
All the time.
Always.
Always.
Feet off the floor.
Yes.
We do sometimes, but I don't recommend it. I don't.
Building their immune systems. It's not the 2-second rule for boys? It's probably the 2-minute rule. Skittle found under the couch. Fair game. So tell us, about what do you think about when you think about cleaning?
So I have an experience I had many years ago that really affected my thought process about this. Because obviously if you have a lot of children, you just know that you really have 2 options. Either you need to let things go and just entertain and just pour into people, or you will be a terrible person preparing to entertain and your family will not actually enjoy it at all.
Right.
The guests may not know the difference depending on the aroma of the home. You might be able to hide it while they're there, but it's not going to be something that your family remembers with joy or wants to repeat.
Right.
And years ago we got, and I don't remember, it's been too long, so I don't remember if it was just me and the kids for like a play date or if it was our whole family for dinner. It's just been a long time, but got invited to some people's house and we got there and the meal was very simple. The house was very untidy, and it wasn't like actual dirt, but it was just very untidy home.
Looked like kids lived there.
Yes, and that very few things got put away, but lots of things got out, taken out. But I remember thinking how we just had a lovely time. It's great fellowship. We enjoyed being around the table together. The kids had a wonderful time playing with the people's children. And I remember talking to my husband about it afterwards. And it was just that great reminder of the fact that people don't actually, most people, I'm sure there are people who wouldn't want to go to a messy house for dinner, but I've never met that person.
Right.
And they probably have other personal problems too, right? But for almost every person, if you get an invite to someone's home for dinner or over to play with your children, you're delighted.
Right. You don't have to cook that night.
Exactly. And you get some fellowship with another family.
They thought of you.
And it's a blessing to you. And if the family was horrible while we were there, it wouldn't have been fun. But they were delightful. And that really affected my thinking about hospitality. And obviously
doesn't have to be perfect.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously putting in some effort to make your home welcoming and not just be like, who cares? It's just dinner.
We're not doing anything.
Yeah. So we try to clean up and make it look pretty and welcoming for the guests. But I think the takeaway for me was that that's not the goal of entertaining. And if you can't tidy your home and make a meal, the tidying should
be secondary.
Yeah. Because that's not actually what people care about.
And don't let that keep you from having someone over.
Yeah, because honestly, if you think back to the times you've been entertained in your life, the only reason I remember this particular event is because it changed my thinking. But if I think back all the times I've been to people's houses, you can't remember whose house was tidy and whose house.
No.
It's not important at all.
And if I think about all the places I've ever been invited, I don't ever picture in my mind a magazine-worthy opening. They open the door and there is a magazine-worthy picture in front of me. Not that their homes weren't beautiful or clean or good food or whatever, but it's lived in. And you expect that, and it makes you feel comfortable.
Exactly. I mean, if you walk into a house that's perfect, your immediately thought is going to be, kids don't touch anything. Right. So the lesson isn't make your house messy or people won't have fun, but more just that it shouldn't really be part of the thought process. Except for, wanting to make it as welcoming as you can as a hostess. But that if you know that that's something you can't do at this stage of life, every stage of life is different.
And if it gets down to the wire and something that was in your mind that's important, I've had to do this so many times. I have a running list of perfectionism in my head. All the things I definitely want to get done, including the hall closet no one will open. But, when push comes to shove and they're walking in the door in 30 minutes, you have to just let it go. Maybe do a quick little glance over the bathroom or whatever, but
send someone to just check and make sure there's a towel.
Double check there's a towel and nothing on the floor. And but just being able to let things go and be relaxed when they walk in because you truly have let it go. You're not in your mind criticizing yourself and then pointing out all your mistakes to them as they walk in the door. I'm so sorry I didn't get the hall closet spring cleaned before you got here.
Exactly.
Oh, and the floors aren't mopped. And that was only 3 days ago. I really wanted to do it again.
Well, and I every year I host a formal dinner for my senior rhetoric students.
At your home?
At my home.
Oh, lovely.
We do a lesson on toasting, and then their assignment for that week is they have to prepare a toast. And then we have the dinner at my home, and they give the toast. And a couple years ago, I made the mistake of planning it for a Friday night because that's when it worked out for the kids. And I thought it would be okay. I get done with school at 3:20, and then I drive home. And I had done some prep in advance, but I found out it's actually not humanly possible for me to prepare a formal dinner for that many people. Starting at 4 and the people walk in the door at 6. It's just not going to happen. So, but the kids walked in at 6, and what my ideal is everything's ready. The tables are all set. Their drinks are prepared, and everything's ready to go. What actually happened is they came in and I was having them help me move tables and, get the last things on the tables. And it didn't actually matter. And ideally, I now do them on Saturdays and it works much better and everything's more how I would like it. So it's not that I'm saying you shouldn't make the effort to have things the way you want them, but it's more that it did not diminish the enjoyment of the guests. And once I just let go of that ideal in my head before they walked in the door, it didn't actually ruin the evening. Sometimes you think, oh, it's going to ruin the evening, or, oh no, this was the worst. You pull something out of the oven and it's burned, or they leave and then you find the sauce that you were going to serve in the fridge, which has happened to me. Yes. And no one's like, oh, remember that time we got invited over to the Millers and they didn't serve the sauce.
Right. They didn't even know about the sauce.
No, they didn't. And so it was totally fine.
It was all fine. And even if they're setting up tables and that sort of thing, even if that's not what you wanted, that's a memory that they probably enjoyed. And they kind of broke the ice and they're visiting with their friends and they're doing a task together. And so everybody's comfortable by the time they have to start their formal dinner with toast. Exactly.
It's not like they're paying for the restaurant, and you walk into the restaurant and they hand you a spoon and are like, we're not done with your meal yet.
Right.
And then pay us.
Right. Oh, those are great tips. So just a quick follow-up on the toast. Does each person give a toast?
Yes.
Each senior?
Yes. And the only rule is they're not allowed to toast. It needs to be someone that is familiar to everyone in the class. So it doesn't have to be a member of the class, but it should be someone that most people know, at least know, are acquainted with. And then the other only rule is that they can't toast me, because normally, obviously, it's good to toast your hostess, but when it's an assignment and it's your teacher, then
they would all be toasting.
Yeah, then it's just weird. So you can't do that.
30 toasts later.
Yes, exactly. These are getting old. No, but it's a lot of fun. They really enjoy it and they do a great job putting together something that's meaningful.
A great thing to teach kids, or young adults rather that are starting their way into the world, because they might be a part of some formal dinners as they grow up and need to know that
Or
etiquette.
weddings.
Or weddings. Yes, absolutely. Weddings. What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home?
So I had two things I would say. First of all, I find that the hospitality you know the most about is really depends on the life stage you're in. So when my kids were little, we did a lot of like little children's parties, and whether it was little children's birthday parties or just different kinds of parties. Then my kids hit the middle school age, and we invited that age group of children over. Now that my daughter's in college, we started doing like a college dinner. And obviously through this, we're always inviting families over with lots of different age children. But I think that if you try to force something that's outside of your life stage, it's not quite as successful. I think you can still do it, and some people can do it really, really well. But if you're worried about it, you're like, I don't know where to start. I want to be hospitable. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to have people over. Think of your people. What are the ages that, or if you're single, think like it's pretty obvious, have some other single girls over. It's a great place to start. And then you can add on to the next level. But if you've got kids who are 7 years old on down, have a party with them. I remember doing birthday parties with moms and kids and cupcakes at the park. And that was all I could do because I was about to have a baby. Yes. And that's a form of hospitality that's really simple.
Very simple. You bring one thing and there's an instant play set.
Exactly.
The kids can run and play. The moms can stand and watch and visit and have fellowship with each other, and you bought cupcakes.
And again, no mom is going to be like, what a lame party. Right. It's just, everyone's like, oh, this
are having a great time. Exactly. And they're out of the house and they get to see their friends.
Exactly.
You know, I did have someone ask me, send me an email just asking about play dates and kind of mentioning that the time of life that they were in, they had young kids and it was hard to do dinners.
Right.
And sometimes when you think of dinner, you do think of late. And one of my suggestions, emailing her back, which I want to get your suggestions as well, but emailing her back, I said, well, you know, I remember when we had young kids, you definitely have to back it up to where,
right,
if you're inviting another family over with young kids, even if not, they may have to understand you eat dinner at 5:00, you know, that's just fine. You don't have to think, oh, it's 7:00 and wait, my kids go to bed or in bed, and, you know, back it up to where it works for you. But the other thing is hospitality doesn't have to be at a certain time.
Right.
So, you know, obviously this is titled Come Over for Dinner, but come over for lunch, come over for brunch, come over for breakfast, come over for cupcakes at the park. You know, it's any time that works for your family or works for your time of life or the age your kids are is the perfect time. So do you have any specific tips that you would offer for that? I know you said like just meeting at the park. Were there any other things that you did that you remember that were a favorite?
So one thing, and I didn't do this, this was sort of done to me, but years ago we had a neighbor. They were international. He was working, I think, a PhD at U of I, and they were from Taiwan. And we did quite a few little things with them for the year that they lived across the street from us. And at one point, she really wanted to make us some Taiwanese food, but the house they were renting across the street was very small. And we had a lot of children. They had one little baby. And she said, I don't know if this is strange, but would you be okay if I made dinner, but then we ate it at your house? And I was thrilled because I just cleaned my house up and got the table set.
Yeah, you had half of the battle and she had the other half.
And I think that that's something that we don't take advantage of as much as we can, because it was so much fun for us, and it was she was delighted to be able to do it. So I think if you live in a very small apartment and you're like, we just don't have room for hospitality, be creative. Maybe find another family who has the opposite problem. Maybe she's got kids that are really tiny and she's just like, I can't cook and clean on the same day. It's just not going to happen.
Yes.
Or even a group of friends that you kind of come up with some idea. Maybe you hire a babysitter all together to entertain the kids while you all cook the meal in the kitchen and then serve it all together.
It's so fun.
I think there's a lot of creative ways we can get around some of the actual practical challenges of having a very young family. And then the other thing, we didn't do this a lot, but we did do it a couple of times when our kids were very small, is we would invite another couple over late. You know, maybe they had a baby, and we'd put our kids down and their kid down in a pack and play at the house. And then we'd have, even if it was just drinks and appetizers or a meal together.
Fun.
It was. And, you know, when your kids are very tiny, sometimes that adult time is
finally
just,
get adult time,
yes.
and you don't have to have a babysitter because they're all there asleep.
Exactly. And we
in
had
their beds.
We had some very dear friends who lived across the alley from us, and they were on their first baby and we were on our sixth. And they would come over some nights with their baby and put her to sleep somewhere, and then we would just be able to visit. And that is actually a great idea. So if you're at a stage where you're hungry for some longer adult conversation that you're not going to get at a family dinner, don't just think that it's that you have to go out and spend a bunch of money at a restaurant or something like that. There are other solutions. So I would just say be creative if you're at a difficult point at your hospitality career, and don't be afraid to be like, hey, let's bring over one of those like pre-made charcuterie boards and a bottle of wine and put the babies all to bed and just enjoy each other's company.
Easy. It doesn't have to be a gourmet 5-course meal that you cooked for 3 days.
Exactly.
The other thing I would say, don't always feel like you have to do everything yourself, which I think you alluded to with some of your ideas. Obviously, it's great to invite people over and have done everything. You know, you've cooked everything. You have the, salad, the soup, the main dish, and dessert. Oh, and homemade bread. But it's also okay to do a potluck. I know when my kids were young, I remember having a friend come over, and we would sometimes I had 5 kids and she had 4 kids, and 9 hungry kids. It was kids' play date, and but it was moms getting together too. But we called it. What did we call it? No, I'm thinking of the word Brenner, but that was breakfast for dinner. We often did that, but this was actually brunch. We would just have everybody come over mid-morning. They're all having a great time, but we would have waffles and bacon or sausage or whatever, and we would kind of pool our resources. I have a waffle iron, and I love making waffles, so I would make waffles, and she would bring other things. And it ended up really being a lunch for kids because, by the time they're...
Oh, yeah, they just keep grazing the whole time.
Yes.
So great.
So... that's an option too, is you don't have to do every single thing. Or if you're meeting up at the park, it's a group of moms. Well, somebody brings some sandwiches, somebody brings some fruit, somebody brings some chips, it can, and somebody bring cookies. It can be a group effort. Oh, yeah. That makes it a lot easier as well.
And I think you could do that for dinner too. Invite the dads, be like, hey, we're going to bring the baseballs and bats, and we're all going to pitch in, have a little fun dinner, and then everybody can play in the park. And it's a great way if you have a tiny house.
Yes. I think people forget about picnics nowadays. But some of the most magical things recently is when the weather is perfect. You kind of really have to plan it. Yes. I do, because I when I was first married, my grandmother bought me a picnic basket for a wedding present. Who does that? But it was so fun, and we used it for years. I eventually got rid of it. I'm not sure why. And I don't know. I just kind of forgot about picnics, maybe because there's a short window when you live in the South.
Also, when you live in the Northwest.
Yeah, I'm in the Northwest as well. It's like you really better focus on spring and fall, and it's the right temperature. But recently, with my son and daughter-in-law, they're both seniors in college now. I guess maybe it was when they first started, or maybe it was last year in their junior year. But I just had the idea of I haven't seen them for a while, and it was after they were married, so it must have been the beginning of their senior year. And I just had the thought of what? Meet at the park. It's halfway between our houses. And I brought a blanket and just had pre-made some sandwiches, grabbed some chips and fruit and vegetables, whatever I had in my fridge. And we had this spread at the park. And it was so much fun. And I had that thought of, we really need to do picnics a lot more than we do.
Everybody loves a picnic.
Everybody loves a picnic. So... And then there's tables there, and a lot of places have grills where you could take advantage of that, that sort of thing. So what is your favorite kitchen item, and where can we find it?
So I mentioned the mandolin, but I would say if it's something I use every day, I have just an old cast iron skillet. It's not anything fancy. I think we actually found it at one of our houses that we bought. Someone had left it behind. It's not the enameled fancy Le Creuset, though I do love the Dutch ovens and everything, but it's just a seasoned, heavy duty. I think it's about a 10 or a 12 inch. And we just use that all the time for everything. I really, if you don't have a cast iron skillet, it's really a game changer in the kitchen. It actually lives on my stovetop.
Just stays there.
use it for our eggs in the morning. I saute things in it. It's just always there and super easy to care for, as long as your babysitter doesn't wash it out with soap or something like that. But
how do you keep it seasoned? Do you put oil in it at the end of each use, or does it just stay seasoned for a very long time and you don't have to worry about it?
Unless somebody washes it with soap, it stays seasoned permanently. And you're always adding a little butter, a little oil when you're cooking, and so it's always seasoned. And I like having it on the stovetop because it just removes those extra steps where you're digging around, finding the pan and all that kind of stuff.
And they're heavy, so you don't have to pull up and down all the time.
And things get that nice crispy edge or the good sear.
I don't know how to cook a cornbread without cooking it in a cast iron skillet. I honestly don't remember cooking a cornbread except in a cast iron skillet.
And I don't use it for that, so maybe I should try.
You should. It is the best. In fact, there's a recipe I have, Southern cornbread. It was on the back of a packet of, so you can use regular cornmeal, but this was stone ground cornmeal. Oh, yeah. Which is a little bit coarser. And I came up with, maybe it was on their packet. Most of the time you can do maybe all cornmeal or maybe cornmeal and white flour, but it was whole wheat flour, which you think about when you think about cornbread. It does, think, well, that's going to be heavy, coarse cornmeal and whole wheat flour. It's really good. It is really good. Buttermilk, eggs, all the things.
Probably gives that really good flavor and texture.
It gives it a very hearty texture. But the way that their method was, heat the cast iron skillet in the oven with your oil. Turn the oven on. Baby. Is that how you started Dutch Baby? You put the oil in the oven to heat with your skillet?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you mix up your other ingredients really quickly, your cornmeal and eggs and whatever all the things are. Mix all that up. All you have left is the oil. You pull out your cast iron skillet with the hot oil, pour it into your batter, and stir it in. And so it warms your batter. You put it
sizzly edge.
Yes. And you pour it into this hot cast iron skillet. It starts to sizzle. It's delicious with butter and honey. I'll have to post the recipe.
I need to try that. Yes.
It's so good. It's the only way to cook cornbread. Maybe not like Mexican cornbread. If you're thinking of, I know I've made an Ina Garten recipe before that's like a thicker cornbread. It's maybe something you would make in a baking dish. That's a little bit different. Maybe it had the corn and the cheese. And although on cornbread, this is a rabbit trail. But another Southern cook that came out of Duck Dynasty. Have you ever heard of Miss Kay?
I have not.
Have you ever heard of Duck Dynasty?
I have heard of Duck Dynasty.
Well, she's the mom of the 4 boys.
Okay.
They're grown men, but grandma now to the group. Anyway, she has, of course, the show was really popular and they put out lots of products, but she had her cookbook. And my son was very into Duck Dynasty at the time and wanted this cookbook. And in this cookbook was a cornbread that had bacon and cheese. In the bottom of the cast iron skillet, you put bacon. And so it crisps up as it cooks. And then you put the batter in there, and I think the batter had cheese, and it was really good.
That sounds like a man's cornbread.
It was a man's cornbread and a meal in itself, honestly. But okay, so one place that I've seen, if somebody doesn't have a cast iron skillet, I have seen a variety of them at antique stores.
Yes, and thrift stores too.
And thrift stores. I would say they're probably a bit pricey at antique stores. Sometimes, maybe depending on the store. Sometimes people that run antique stores find that because it can be labeled antique, they jack the prices way, way up. But some are reasonable. And then I guess thrift stores.
Do you also like estate sale? I mean, I've seen many of them that I have not purchased because really it lives on my stove, so I don't need any more of them. But I think if you're on, well, actually, it's not even if you're on a budget, because I honestly think buying one of the older ones is going to be better quality than buying a brand new one. I'm sure there are some good brands, but the older ones are just really, really good quality. So
really well made.
I would just keep your eye out. Tell your friends, watch for a cast iron skillet for me.
And it is a good thought. A lot of people if they do estate sales, they're getting rid of all of whatever it is in someone's house. or if people don't cook, they might be getting rid of something that they had that they were given. So cast iron skillets really don't age too badly. I mean,
not at all.
They really can last forever.
And I haven't
so you
personally
can find
done
great quality cast iron skillets at places like that. But what were you going to say?
So I haven't personally experimented with this, but I do know one of the girls in town got some that were really rusted at an antique store, not an antique store, I think at a estate sale. And then you can she cleaned the rust off very easily. So if you do see one that's rusted, you'll probably get it for a low price and it's not ruined at all. You can recover those. So I think it's worth
there is a way. We did it, and I don't remember the method. You would have to Google it, but there was something that we had that was like that, and my husband Googled it and figured out a way to strip it and re-season it.
Exactly.
And so we did that whole process in the backyard, and it was something about putting it in a trash bag with something, or it's totally submerged and it stripped it. Then after a certain amount of time, you re-season it and it's upside down in the oven. And I don't even remember all the steps, but it turned out perfect. It was beautiful. When it was re-seasoned, it was like brand new. So again, it's been years since we did that, so I don't remember, but it can be done. So very good. All right. Do you have any stories to share with us?
Well, I did want to talk about my drinking fountain because I know when you asked me to come talk to you, that was part of the draw, the Miller draw. So
I have heard the tale or the legend.
I guess our last house we had to redo the kitchen. It was a very bad kitchen when we moved in, so we had everything ripped out, and we had a problem. I think that's very common for all parents of maybe even one child. You would have this problem, but there were always cups because no child really wants a drink of water. They want a sip of water. So they come running in, get some water in a cup, take a sip, put it on the counter, run back out and play. And when you come back in again 20 minutes later, you don't reach for the same cup because there's now like 5 cups on the counter. You don't know which one is yours. So you get another cup out. So by the end of the day, we would have like 30 cups sitting on the counter. I mean, this is ridiculous. So when we had our kitchen walls ripped out, I don't know. I think I thought of it because I saw an antique drinking fountain on Craigslist, which I bought, but we didn't end up using because I couldn't find a plumber who could figure out how to hook up the old plumbing. So I sold that one, but I found a very tiny stainless steel drinking fountain. I think it was an LK brand, so it's very small. And it was very inexpensive because the walls were already open, the plumbing was already all open. And so we put it in, it was in our dining room. We had kind of an open concept dining room kitchen, and there was a peninsula between the kitchen and the dining room. And we just tucked the drinking fountain against the wall, at the wall side of the peninsula. And sometimes you have those ideas and you think, I wonder if this will solve the problem. And then maybe it kind of does, but you didn't really think it through all the way, or some kind of unexpected contingency arises. But the drinking fountain was not one of those instances. It completely solved the problem.
Wow.
It was glorious. The kids, I don't think they used cups anymore after that ever. It was amazing.
Even at
they
dinner.
Loved it.
Let's just go get a drink from the water fountain.
It is actually true. They would do that. They'd hop up from the table, get their drink out of the drinking fountain, sit
well,
back
it's
down.
probably a novelty,
Oh,
too.
yeah.
It's so fun to have a drinking fountain in your house.
And then people would come over and they would bring the kids over to the drinking fountain, like their guests, and be like, here, try our drinking fountain. So if you out there are lucky enough to be doing a kitchen remodel, I highly recommend it. We live in a very different house now. But I was just telling my husband the other day, when we ever have to redo the kitchen, we are going to figure out where we can put a drinking fountain for our grandchildren. So
yes, they would love it, and it would save washing a load of cups every single day.
Oh, yes. And then they could have great memories of Grandma's drinking fountain.
Yes, I love that. And I have never heard of that, but it is genius.
It is one of my very fond memories from that kitchen.
Yes, and a fun memory for your children as well. Because anytime they want a quick little sip, they can, and they're not in charge of keeping up with the cup.
Exactly. It was just a magical thing all the way around. And then the last piece of advice I would have is that hospitality never goes exactly how you expect it to go. Even if you are one of those people who has everything perfect, there probably is going to be something that goes wrong. I think this is just with life, right? There's always something that doesn't go how you plan. And you just have to be ready to lean into it and enjoy it in the moment, or at least enjoy it later if you didn't enjoy the moment. And I learned this lesson very early in my life because when my husband and I were living in Italy, actually, no, I think it was before we were married. So it was the first time I was over there. And we wanted to be hospitable while we were living overseas because people were so hospitable to us. So we invited some Italians over to our home for dinner. And we worked really hard because Italians are very good cooks in general, and they really love food. And they're critics of food. They're food critics. They're all born food critics. So we thought really hard about the menu. We chose really carefully. We were like, okay, what can we cook for these people? And as a side note, Italians don't drink water out of the tap. They drink they're really into bottled water. It's kind of a country obsession. There's commercials about different brands of bottled water, and the sodium content is a very, very important thing for them.
Okay.
But it's not like some countries where the water is actually dangerous. It's just they really love bottled water. So we thought the water tasted fine. So we bought one bottle of water, but then after that we would just fill the bottle with water from the tap and keep it in the fridge so it would stay cold. So these people come over for dinner. And I, at this point, was fluent in Italian, so the language barrier was not a problem for me. And they come in, and we're welcoming them and everything. And one of them asked for some water. And I was like, oh, sure, I'll get it. There's a bottle in the fridge. We get it out of the tap and put it, and I'm saying this in Italian, we get it out of the tap and it's from the tap, but it's in the bottle in the fridge. And they're like looking at me kind of strangely. And they're like, really? From the tap? And I was like, yeah, I mean, it tastes fine. So we've just been using it out of the tap. And, you're kind of like, oh, great. Is this like a really bad thing? Yeah, it's not poison. And one of the guys is like, do all Americans do that? And I was like, oh, yeah. In America, this is totally normal. Everyone does this. Everyone drinks out of the tap. It's just like super normal. So we just have been getting it out of the tap, putting it in the fridge in a bottle. Well, after a few minutes, I realized that the word for tap in Italian is rubinetto. The word for toilet in Italian is gabinetto.
No.
And I was mixing them up.
Oh, no.
So I had been telling our guests that we kept toilet water in the fridge to drink. And not only that, but that all Americans do this.
Drink toilet water. And all of a sudden, her guests are not thirsty at all.
And it was really no wonder they were all looking at me very, very suspiciously at that point.
Did he take a drink of your toilet water?
Not until we had clarified. And then I did not hear the end of that for a very long time. They made fun of Americans and their obsession with bathrooms for many months afterwards.
I can imagine. At least the story didn't get spread further than that. At least there was some clarification before they walked out.
Before they said, no thanks, we actually just changed our minds on eating with you at all.
And we really have changed our minds about Americans.
Yes.
And no, you can't come over next week. and use the bathroom because that's really weird. The language mix-ups. I can see that happening. That's really funny. That's a great story.
So whatever disasters you've had, I'm sure you've never invited your guests to drink from your toilet. So.
Or told them that you have nice chilled
toilet water
in your fridge just for them. Oh, I love it. So funny. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing all of your menus and recipes, tips, and stories. They were the best.
Thank you, Bess. This was fun.
Thank you for taking time out of your day.